Hey everybody, thanks for joining us. We're doing the esoteric study group. Usually we do a practice, but I thought we'd do a little Q&A. So you can ask questions, unmute yourself, type in, whatever you'd like.
So what was that you said?
Q&A.
Oh, I muted it, so you guys can't unmute yet. Just a sec, let me get it so you guys can unmute. Anything goes, spiritual wise or that kind of thing.
Greg, another question for you.
Hey,
Balance, finding a balance. I see myself going from, I'll give you an example.
mhm.
Veganism, for example, I was reading Agni Yoga and I get so super duper inspired by some of the teachings, and there is that inner calling that I want to align with everything that the ascended masters have said, just
Mhm.
quit this and quit that. And I do that. And for 21 days, I had no salt, no sugar, no cooked food even. It was just raw vegan. And it was literally like a yogi would eat. Like from India, it is really insisted in the Ayurvedic, for example,
Mhm.
um, to eat clean and fruits and salads. And so I went to that extreme for 21 days, and the experiences that I had were so great, but it is not sustainable. And
Right.
the more you go towards that, the more you just want to go away from the material side, because it is just so blissful. Your meditations are more blissful, and it's just a matter of finding that balance, that no, I need to survive.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess my question is, how do we find that balance? And
Yeah. I mean, I think for a spiritual student, that's always a little bit of like a struggle or a difficulty. And I think the thing that I always try to keep in mind is, having those experiences are amazing, but like you said, you need to take care of yourself, but also by going through and taking those states and those experiences and the spiritual things that we kind of derive from these experiences, and then applying them to normal everyday life, like doing something with application. For one, it helps bring that spiritual experience into the physical form, but in the application helps to like physicalize it and helps you to kind of get it on a deeper level. It's nice to have the experience, but then when you bring that in with this new perspective and apply it to normal everyday life, it begins to change your perspective of normal everyday life and your spiritual experiences. And I think that going back and forth of observing and then application, and then observing and application, and like, so I would say still have times where, like, like you said, you're following this specific diet and everything, but or that it's even just meditations. Take a period of time where you go through and you experience those things, but then go back and go, okay, now let's apply this state that I'm in to my normal everyday life. And I might not be able to stay away from certain foods, or I might, not be able to do it from every day, but from time to time, maybe on the weekends or once a month, I'm going to go through and do this and then pull that into my normal everyday life, so that when you're having your normal everyday life, you start to realize that you're seeing your normal everyday life from a different perspective. You're seeing it more from an observer state. And I think the thing is, like, when you're having those experiences, it's good to disentangle from normal everyday life, but then to not avoid normal everyday life. There is that balance. And so I would say setting aside time to where you do consciously withdraw, and then there's going to be times where you do consciously take that back into your normal everyday world and apply it. And as you apply it, you're learning the lessons. Like, even if it's like, okay, I'm trying to stay away from salt, or I'm trying to stay away from this, and then you stay away from it for a while, and then you go back into your normal everyday life and you go, wow, I crave salt a lot, and I I actually kind of crave salt a lot when I'm super stressed out or when I'm feeling anxious. Then you can start to go, okay, maybe I need to address my anxiety. Maybe I need to address, my stress levels. Maybe I need to get more sleep. It could be, any form of that. And so, when you change perspectives like that, when you're going from the extreme of being in deep meditative state and like following that diet, and then going into like the workplace or the normal everyday world, like that differentiation that you have from being in those different places or those different states can really help bring a bigger awareness or a bigger picture view of like the life and your practice and your perceptions. I mean, it can really help to shift and change things. And so I would say, kind of do them both with intention. Try to do them as intentional as you can. When you're not in your normal everyday world and you're doing meditations and the special diet and everything, do it wholeheartedly. I mean, it sounds like you've been doing. And then when you come back, you kind of pull some of that back with you, but you go, okay, now I got to work. Got to do that wholeheartedly. And let the perspectives from both places kind of like overlap into the area so that eventually there's a merging or a harmony between the two.
I think that is so helpful, and it makes total sense, because at the moment what I notice is that when I go to the outside world, I don't want to be there.
Well, yeah.
And
It's
there's a
very common for
constant,
spiritual practitioners to like go, yeah, I'd rather just stay in the inner world and just hang out here. And,
yeah,
but we're in a body and we have a life. And like you said, you got to take care of yourself. And, so, being able to go back and forth is important.
yeah. And then, like going to friends' places and seeing them partying and things like that. And I'm like, nah, that's not my life anymore. But now I'm learning to find a balance, how to continue carrying my essence, the spiritual essence with me,
Mhm.
and staying strong, because I realized that if I was strong, then I would not feel this way when I'm in the outside world. That means that I'm not strong enough right now. That means that, the experiences that I'm having spiritually, they have not fully become a part of me, because if they would have become a part of me, then I wouldn't mind being anywhere. I would be anywhere, and I would still carry that, that light with me. But I get impacted by the outer world. And
Yeah. So like what I would say is, I think part of the appeal to like hanging out like more in the meditative state and the inner world is it feels nice. It's just like, it feels nice. It feels blissful. And then when we go into the everyday world, you're presented with difficulties, you're presented with things that are uncomfortable. And if you think about it, it's very similar to like kind of what happens in meditation. You have this expansive state and you only can expand for so long before you kind of start coming back into your body again. And if you are able to sit with that for a little bit, you'll have a greater levels of expansion after you have that condensation in your meditation. And when you come into the normal everyday world and there are those stresses and there are those difficulties and there are those like uncomfortable feelings or whatever it is, feelings might not be the right word, but like just uncomfortable or difficult situations, I think the thing is, I'm saying this for me, like sometimes for a while I thought about like, oh, do I have the strength for this? But then over a period of time, I realized it wasn't really strength that I was needing to cultivate. It was more of the ability to be present with the difficulty or the uncomfortable feeling or the uncomfortable situation. Because you think of a lot of what happens in normal everyday life is we want to know what's going to happen. We want to know what the future is. We want to know if we're going to do this, what is going to be the process. Like the brain wants to know, like, if I do this, XYZ is going to happen. And a lot of times we don't know. We just simply don't know. And, we have a brain that starts to make up, well, if this happens or this can possibly happen, the brain starts doing all these things. And just that ability to sit and be present with something and go, I don't know where this is going to go. I'm going to take in information. I'll adjust myself, but I'm also just going to sit with it. I'm going to be present with it. And I'm going to see what this moment brings me. You could say there's a kind of strength with that, but really more than anything, it's almost like a curiosity that you're kind of cultivating. And you just sit in the moment and just go, I can remember doing this going, okay, I'm just going to do this for 30 seconds longer. I'm just going to sit and be present with this for 30 seconds longer. And then after 30 seconds, you go, okay, another 15 seconds. And because your mind wants to do something, your body wants to do something, you want to try to manage it or something. And what I started to notice was that things started flowing easier. And it didn't mean that still negative things didn't happen, but my reactions to the negative things started to change. And really, a lot of times that's all we can really do is not have the reactions. Sometimes the environment is just simply the environment, and we're not going to get a person to change or business to change or situations to change, but we can change how we sit with it, be present with it, and how we react with it. And that is taking what we were doing in those meditative states or in those states where you've withdrawn and kind of turn inward, and it's putting it into action. And I would say that can be your active meditation, is being able to be with something and be present with something, but not by closing your eyes, but by okay, I'm going to interact with this. I'm going to sit with this. I'm going to observe this. And in difficult situations, I've had this with some friends and stuff where, they might be having difficulties where they've asked for help or opinions, and, you give it to them and they're like, nah. And they start having difficulties, and, you could help them, but it's like, I'm just going to have to sit and be present and observe and watch. And maybe at some point I can help them, maybe I can't. But I think there's something important with being able to not turn away from the situation, to be able to observe it and still kind of be non-reactive to it. And that is a kind of meditation too. It's a more active meditation, but it's a very much a meditation. And so you can still be doing your practice, but in motion.
That's so true. That makes total sense. Sometimes we just separate the spiritual so much that we think that our material life is just material, but it's not. We can spiritualize the material life so much.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's what applying the knowledge is. That's what's going to give the wisdom, because knowledge, not bookish knowledge, is so much there, but it turns into wisdom only from having certain experiences which are not so pleasant sometimes. And it's then that, okay, this I have learned, I don't want to do it this way anymore. So I guess that's just the journey. But thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Good talking.
And you guys can always unmute yourself or raise your hand. Somebody asked in the chat, could you give a little more detail about the Phoenix Technique class? Thanks. What is the focus and how does it tie into the other classes we're doing?
Yeah, I have to bring it up. Sometimes I'm writing so many different classes, I can't keep up with. Oh, yes. Okay, yeah. Okay, so But part of what we're doing with that, how we were talking about the health rays is another component of it is we're going to be looking at, we've talked about things like cords and connections and entanglements with people and situations and things like this. But we tackle it from the point of view of physiology. We're talking about it from the point of psychology. We talk about it sometimes from the point of energetics. Here, we're kind of merging all of this, and we're taking some of the components and going much, much deeper to unwind something. And a lot of times, so here we're going to be focusing on not so much cutting cords, which is what we really have focused a lot in the past. But a lot of times it's not the negative cords that is causing us issues, but it is the healthy cords that have gotten contaminated, right? That are or are connected to past events. So we're going to go through and detoxify these connections, be it with people or events, and then the energies that kind of flow out are different kinds of energies that would be agitating to the person. And so it would affect your perception. So what we're going to do is we're going to unwind and release these energies that are tied to people that or events. For me, there was a really bad accident that I had when I was young. And when I go through and unwind that, a bunch of energy comes out, and it's not about a person, it's about the event, but it's almost like the event itself or nature itself was aggressive towards me or towards my body. That made my body have a certain reaction, right? And so we're going to unwind the connection to that. We're going to unwind the effects that had on the body. And then we're going to unwind the perceptions that are the byproduct of having events like that happen. And even if you're not conscious of what the events are, the technique will be about unwinding these things regardless. And so it really helps to deal with like difficult people, difficult situations, because a lot of times what happens is these connections or these cords, we've gone through and released all these things, but they're still like kind of healthy connections that have gotten super, super contaminated. And they still affect our thoughts, our feelings, our behaviors, and how we respond to other situations. It's kind of like we have a little bit of this imprinted on us as we move forward in other areas. Like, it's the tendency to be triggered. It's the tendency to just go into an automatic behavior or automatic thought process. It's the tendency to maybe even check out a little bit or have a reaction that's not about what's in front of you, but based on you're still kind of reacting to the things in the past. And it's a way to unwind these things and be able to transition out of them and deal with things with the skill set that you have now, rather than the reactions that you've had from years past. I know that's a long explanation for it, but it is literally about impacting the endocrine system and how your brain processes things and your perception based on these past events, and unwinding kind of psychic attack kind of energies and things like this. And yeah. I mean, we're always dealing with projections from other people. And, the really super negative ones, we've talked about and we've dealt with, but there's ones that are just maybe a little bit more subtle and a little bit more constant. And sometimes they're from family, friends, loved ones, or peers or coworkers, and they're just over a period of time. Sometimes they're from advertising, they're from society or a culture. And so just going through and unwinding these things on a very deep level. Yeah.
If you have a question, you can type it in, you can unmute yourself. We have 8 minutes till we have to be into our next session.
Okay, so if nobody has a question, usually we do a practice, then I threw the Q&A at you guys. Let's do this. Let's pull out, if you have Splendor, let's have you pull out Splendor. If you don't, let's have you pull out something like mugwort or basil, sage. Let's have you pull something out like that. If you don't happen to have those, we can give you more choices, but let's shoot for those first. Poplar would be another one if you had poplar. I think we're good. Okay, so you're going to open it up and begin inhaling. Remember, you're inhaling through your nose, exhaling out through your mouth. And your awareness is on your brain. Long, slow, deep breaths with your awareness on your brain. You're continuing with your awareness on your brain. Now, move your awareness to the forehead. Your forehead is where the hairline is. You're taking long, slow, deep breaths with your awareness on your forehead. And then move your awareness to the back head, opposite your eyebrows on the back side, your back head. Now do your forehead and your back head at the same time. You're taking long, slow, deep breaths with your awareness on the forehead and back head at the same time. Now, continue to inhale. Your awareness is on the palms of your hands. And now move your awareness to the soles of your feet. You're taking long, slow, deep breaths. Your awareness is on the soles of your feet. And be still and be aware. Just let everything go. I know that was a little short little session there, but we have to just cut it just a few minutes short just because we're going to be doing the Astara meditation. I kind of prepped you guys to join us in the meditation. So if you want to continue with what we're doing, but without oils, I'd say kind of follow us over. We'll post the link for you. Next week, we'll be back on for Tuesday, but we'd love it if you could join us tonight. But if not, we'll hopefully see you on the weekend or maybe next week. Take care, you guys.